The American Civil War, a story soaked in blood, a dance of death where the cries of freedom clashed with the cold greed of men who saw human lives as property. It was not a battle of valor, but a reckoning of souls. One side fighting for liberation, the other for chains. Beneath the tattered flags of the Confederacy, an empire built on the backs of the enslaved sought to uphold its satanic grip on the throats of black men, women, and children. The darkness of the South. In the shadowed plantations of the South, where the sun baked the fields and sweat poured from the brows of those bound in chains, the heart of America's sin festered. Here, lives were bought and sold like cattle, stripped of dignity, hope, and humanity. Cotton flowed like gold into the hands of white capitalist overlords, but it was watered with blood. Black blood spilled in silence. The enslaved were not merely victims. They were the fuel of an entire economic engine. And as long as this engine churned profits, the men who ran it didn't care about the screams echoing through the night. They called it states' rights, but what right does any state have to crush the lives of others, to break families apart, to treat humans as mere capital, a means to an end? The Southern lords wrapped themselves in the flag of liberty, but it was a twisted, hollow liberty. Liberty for the few, damnation for the many. The call for freedom. But in the North, a spark ignited. Abolitionists like Frederick Douglass, a man born in chains but whose spirit had never been caged, stood as living proof that black lives were meant for more than servitude. The North's battle was not for territory, but for the soul of a nation. And so, when the cannons roared at Fort Sumter, the war began not just to reunite a fractured country, but to decide whether America would be a land of freedom or oppression. Abraham Lincoln, a president who understood the weight of history, took up the sword not for conquest, but for justice. His Emancipation Proclamation, though limited, was a declaration of war against an institution older than the nation itself, slavery. With it, he drew a line in the sand. The time had come for America to choose what kind of country it wanted to be. The North marched not only for the Union, but for the freedom of millions who had been shackled by greed. Capitalism's cruel grip. But even in the North, the stench of capitalism lingered. The same system that profited from the broken backs of black bodies in the South thrived on the labor of the poor in northern factories. America had always been a land where profits came first, where the rich thrived at the expense of the many. For every free black man who picked up a musket to fight for his freedom, there were those who saw the war as an inconvenience, a disruption in the flow of wealth. The white capitalists didn't care whether the Union or Confederacy won, so long as the money continued to flow. War itself was just another business opportunity. The factories that produced the weapons, the railroads that transported soldiers, the farms that fed them, these were the engines of capitalism, churning wealth for the few while millions died. And as the war raged on, with Gettysburg and Antietam awash in blood, the truth became clear. America was not fighting for justice. It was fighting over its economic soul. The North and South were two sides of the same coin, both trapped in the grip of a system that valued wealth over life, property over people. The price of capitalism. Even after the final shots were fired and the Confederacy lay in ruins, the evil of slavery did not vanish. The 13th Amendment may have abolished slavery, but the chains of capitalism remained. Reconstruction, that brief window of hope for Black Americans, was crushed under the weight of white supremacy and greed. The former slaves were free, but the system that oppressed them evolved. Sharecropping replaced slavery, and Jim Crow laws ensured that Black lives would continue to be devalued. America's true legacy was not freedom for all. It was the relentless pursuit of profit at any cost. And if those profits came at the expense of Black lives, or poor lives, or the lives of those who dared to stand in the way of its capitalist machine, so be it. The land of the free had become the land of the capitalist, a country where the dollar ruled and humanity was secondary. The unseen legacy. The American Civil War did not end slavery's cruelty. It merely changed its face. The same spirit of greed that fueled the war continues to burn in the hearts of the powerful today. The rich grow richer, while the poor, the disenfranchised, and the marginalized are left to suffer. And just like in 1865, America is still a nation that sacrifices the many for the benefit of the few. From the fields of Mississippi to the factories of New York, capitalism has always placed profits above people. Black bodies were once the property of Southern lords, and today they are still crushed under systemic injustice. The same forces that fought to keep slavery alive continue to find new ways to exploit, oppress, and profit from the suffering of others. Black lives and true freedom. But through it all, Black lives have endured, risen, and inspired. From the enslaved who risked everything to escape, to the soldiers who fought for their own freedom in Union ranks, to the generations of civil rights leaders who carried the torch, the strength of Black America is a testament to human resilience. While white capitalists sought to dehumanize, Black lives redefined humanity with courage, dignity, and unbreakable spirit. The Civil War was not just a battle between North and South. It was a battle for the soul of America. And today, the fight continues, because America, at its core, is still a nation where capitalism reigns supreme, where profits are cherished above people. The war may have ended, but the struggle for true freedom, for justice, for a world where Black lives are valued as much as white wealth, rages on. The cry for justice. Let this be a reminder. No system built on the backs of the oppressed can stand forever. America may have been built on the lies of freedom and the promises of equality, but it has yet to deliver on those ideals. The Civil War was just the beginning. It is up to us to continue the fight to tear down the last vestiges of slavery, of capitalism's cruelty, and to build a world where life, not wealth, is what truly matters.